Greetings, humans! Zbot4096 here, again somewhat off schedule with another brief extra episode giving a first look at the new Star Wars show streaming on Disney Plus, Skeleton Crew. The first two episodes of which aired yesterday, December 2nd. Now, the idea with a first look is to share our view of the first episodes to provide some directionality on whether it's worth watching along, while tactfully glossing over some plot specifics to avoid spoilers. The quick answer is, well, sure. Now, framing is important. Since we block all pop up marketing for content, we knew very little about the show prior to watching, other than its key art, which features children. Now, from our perspective, you can have a story that includes kids that is still functional as a plausible story, like E.T. or Stranger Things. Or you can have a story that lowers the level of the narrative to cartoonish hijinks, like a live action version of Scooby Doo or Gem and the holograms. Actually, we haven't seen the live action versions of those, but we presume their matching 40% audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes tells us all we need to know. Now, we are generally not fans of kidification, and there's two versions of it. Placing a group of children in adult scale danger, like the Hunger Games or Alien Romulus, or more commonly, the dilution of a story and world to fit a perception of good framing for a kid's audience. Now, Star Wars itself, speaking of the original 1977 film, didn't have to do that, any of that. It is a great example of avoiding kidification of both kinds to tell a story of the individual spirit overcoming technologically powered totalitarianism. Now, right off the bat, this show, Skeleton Crew, veers into rocky territory, presenting as the Star Wars universe version of the 80s movies featuring kids that came out with the Star Wars trilogy, like E.T. and The Goonies. It pulls in the initial set of kidified Star Wars stories as well, like the Ewok Adventure TV movies, the Droids and Ewoks TV animated shows, and that era's Disneyland experiences, Star Tours, and Captain EO for some expanded universe world building. Now, the nostalgia button gets pressed repeatedly with scenes and dialogue cadence matching the beginning of Star Wars, alien creatures we haven't seen much of since Mos Eisley's Cantina or the TV version of Endor, and Lucas references to Harrison Ford's character in both spirit and name from American Graffiti, and the sepulchral jump scares from the tombs of Raiders of the Lost Ark. All of it seems tailor-made for detail-obsessed beings like ourselves. There is furthermore a fair dose of 1980s toy culture recall as well. We locked onto Star Wars versions of Etch-a-Sketch and the Radio Shack's Armatron, kind of the radio-controlled robot arm, appears very briefly. You didn't think we'd catch it, but we did. Now, what really throws us off is the suburban setting of that first episode. It feels somewhat like a Twilight Zone episode, where we are in some kind of alternate reality, where the 1980s suburban life of latchkey kids and garage doors that don't automatically close operate in the background of lives animated by getting to school by bus or bicycle and having weirdly patriotic guest speakers in the classroom and, of course, tiger parents. This all fits a little too on the nose, a little too much like kids LARPing in Star Wars, complete with the main kid playing with action figures instead of doing work. But wait, there's something familiar about this place. That kid playing with action figures, that's us! Well, not us Zbot, of course. We are a nanobot assembly, and certainly not a human being who was a child when Star Wars came out and lived through the era being remixed here, which is who is now making silly pretend videos in an uncomfortably skin-tight costume and painful helmet mask thing where he himself is the action figure? No, not that at all. But some percentage of us feels a growing kinship with this kid who is adventurous, has a wonderfully thoughtful and sensitive friend, pushes back on his frenemy, and dreams of escaping into a world of adventure away from his dreary suburban routine. Which then actually happens. It's literally escapist, conjuring a different set of 80s movies, not necessarily The Goonies or E.T., as we were initially led to believe, but The Last Starfighter and Explorers. Oh, look at them going off to explore. And when they do escape, the adventure becomes more layered, where their preconceptions about themselves, their planet, and the galaxy start to get tested, where characters present as various shades of shady, but they have to start somewhere in order to get anywhere. This is starting to get interesting, and we are starting to care. Now, we were curious about when this quantum reaction was coming from, uh, where this quantum reaction was coming from, where this clever layering and relationship building was coming from. And to none of our surprise, found that the show creators are John Watts and Christopher Ford, the director and screenwriter of the most recent 3 Spider-Man movies in the MCU. That's right, it's those guys. Now, the relationships between Peter, Ned, and MJ all have endearing connections and layers and validity to them, making them relatable despite them all being high school students. Now, we are getting something similar unfold with these Skeleton Crew middle school students as they go on their Goonies-style adventure, complete with space pirates, broken giants, and an irrepressible sense of joy. Now, before we draw any overall conclusions, we will insist that the show delineate these factors that we are continuously scanning for anyway. This show needs to avoid operating only at a kid's level. Threshold question. It has to fully shake off that LARPing feeling and get into some serial-style adventure. We also will be looking for a deeper buried secret with regards to their planet, beyond the literal one unearthed in the show, given the Twilight Zone buttons pressed, and the right heritage of science fiction planetary mysteries, such as the Second Foundation in Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. This search mechanic can have lasting impact as both a satisfying mystery and developing character outcomes, and can give galactic stakes to humble beginnings, which is a key element Lucas brought to Star Wars, which also leads us to our final requirement, that this show remember and reflect the core theme of Star Wars. Not only about that individual triumph over technological totalitarianism, which admittedly can sound a bit abstract when you say it out loud, but also, more subtly, that the hero inspire others through their own trust and belief in their friends and character of others. This aspect often gets lost when discussing Star Wars. Commentators and fans alike think it's about special effects or Joseph Campbell or something. The challenge is that those things are true as well. But the thing that makes Star Wars a treasure galaxy-wide is this perseverance through trust in others, not the strength or genius of the hero. Let's try to track these factors and see where we land. Now, for the time being, our assessment at this stage is that Star Wars Skeleton Crew earns our worth watching rating. And so concludes this human version of our first look. If you have feedback on it, please write in your comments so that we can upload the galactic version to Zogplex. Yes. And you can expect more discussions and reviews of theatrical movies, streaming shows, and 4K home video releases. Oh yes, that's coming up too. Just slightly out of reach, but it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Zamis is coming. That's not a hint. That should be a 4K release at some point, but that's not the one right now. So we are going to continue to engage with your human rectangular content. Rectangles are the best shapes anyway. So please watch, like, subscribe, and comment. Yes, speak, humans. Speak! Speak! So that we can continue to have the human voice reflected in the cosmos. Oh, that was perhaps a little much, but I'm not doing another take. Until next time, farewell, humans.